I think people get tattooed because there's not a lot of real stuff left in the world. With tattooing, it's blood, it's pain, it's permanence. There's nothing else in the world like that.
Hey guys, just a little 5-minute video today to talk about Tebori and answer some of the ongoing questions and queries that I get all the time. I did speak about them during my Instagram live the other day, but I thought I'll make a little video, I'll answer all the questions, make it super available and easy for everyone to find, so that when you have those questions I can direct you to the video. This is the video, alright? So, Tebori, as we know, is hand-poke traditional Japanese tattoo. Te means hand and bori means to carve, so it literally means hand carve. And you'll see a lot of the translation in Japanese to English as hand carved tattoo. I'm going to put my phone on silent so we don't get any disturbances like I had the other day. Now, so Tebori, hand carved tattoo. Bori is the prefix for, sorry, the suffix for a lot of things. So to carve, you've got sujibori, which is line, which means line carve. You've got nujibori, which is a tattoo of a tattoo. So you have a warrior tattoo on your back and that warrior has a tattoo himself. That's called nujibori, right? So you'll see a lot in tattooing the suffix bori, if you pay attention. Now, as far as the questions people ask me, the biggest one is, does it hurt? I mean, that's the question for all tattooing. But in particular Tebori, people go, it looks like it hurts. It looks like you're being stabbed. And I gotta tell you, and I'm being honest, it hurts a lot less. And you can ask anyone who's had Tebori, they'll tell you, if they've had it done properly by a proper master who knows what they're doing, it hurts a lot less. It's a lot more relaxing. Tattoo machine goes into the skin and pain goes from 0 to 11. Alright, does on me. And you sit and you grit your teeth and you bear it and you try and breathe through it and the machine comes out and you're like, whew. You relax. Dip, machine's back in, you're like, oh, right? So it's a lot of flexing and tensing. And then after, say, a 3-hour session, you're exhausted because you've just been flexing and tensing your whole area, whether it's your arm or your leg or your ribs or your back. And so you don't have that with Tebori, right? When I start tattooing somebody and I go in, it's like the first couple pokes, like, oh, and then it's just super relaxing, right? You don't flex, you don't tense, you're not holding your breath. And the pain level's going from 0 to 6, 0 to 7. If it's somewhere particularly shitty, it might go from 0 to 8. And then it just hovers there. And you can take it. I mean, I tattoo people regularly for 8 hours a day. 2 4-hour sessions with a lunch break. I couldn't do that with machine. People would be broken. So Tebori definitely hurts less, right? And I stand by that. I've had a lot of Tebori myself and a lot of machine. And ask anyone who's had it done right, Tebori is much less painful. The other thing I get asked is the time difference, right? And so this is the one where you have to ask yourself why you're getting tattooed. If you want to get tattooed for the experience of getting a traditional Japanese tattoo, then Tebori is great. It does take more time, right? I mean, it's just like you get anything made by hand, it will take more time than getting it done by a machine, right? So, and that accounts for everything in life, right? If you get art that's printed by a computer, it's obviously a lot quicker than art that's painted, or even markers. Like when I do my artwork for, say, Archie Rose, or when I did the Wicked Energy drink, or other things I did for like Sake Restaurant, when I did those things, I did everything with a marker, because it had to be clean, precise, quick, right? Easily editable, do another one again if I need to. But when I make my art, I paint, right? Painting slower, more meticulous, you can't rush it. And it has a different look to it. It's a different raw, finished look. And so this is the difference, right? So Tebori, in my opinion, is like that. It's got that more painterly look. It's a little bit raw, and if you know what you're looking at, you can tell that was done by Tebori, right? And so that's the look that I like to go with. And that takes time. So with backgrounds, I would say it's probably twice as long as using machine. But again, it has a much different look to it. With machine shading, whether it's light grays, medium grays, or black to light wind bars, you can do that very quickly with a machine. Dip, 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 right? Make it nice, make it smooth, very easy. By Tebori, you really need to know what you're doing. And it's very meticulous, and you cannot rush it. And it took me several years to be able to do it properly. And I'm still refining as I go now. You know, all my ink is sumi, it's ground in a stone. I measure it out by eye and by feel as to my dilutions. And then as I'm shading and watching, you know, it's a much more handmade, hands-on process. Even though all tattooing is done by hand technically, without a machine though, it's much more difficult. But because the needles in Tebori are thicker in diameter, there's more of them, they're going, I don't want to say deeper in the skin, but they're going in the skin differently. There's two techniques in Tebori. There's Tsukibori and Hanebori. Tsukibori is more like in-out, a little bit like a machine, and you might do that for some shading, right? But I do Hanebori, which is the flicking method, which is in, up, in, up, in, up. And that pushes ink into the holes and then lifts the holes, the needles are in the skin, and pushes the ink under the skin. And that's why you get this much richer, vibrant colors in Tebori tattoos when they're healed. And the same with the shading. I guarantee you, I'm putting 2 or 3 times as much diluted ink, whether it's black, light gray, medium gray. I'm putting at least 2 or 3 times as much in as anyone's doing with a machine. So the backgrounds will look much more rich and silvery, and Tebori with sumi ink creates that real silver sheen look that's very hard, if not impossible, to replicate with a machine using standard tattoo ink. So let's say double the time for backgrounds. Color, it depends what you're doing. Big swaths of color, say I'm doing a big Hanya back and I'm coloring in the main part of the Hanya in red, right? I'm going to say that might take me almost the same amount of time by Tebori as by machine, right? The little details slow you down, but big swaths of color, I can lay big swaths of color as fast as a machine. And it'll heal richer and look as vibrant. It'll heal better and it'll last longer, providing you don't go in the sun. So again, it's the details that slow you down. It's the little finicky stuff by hand with a smaller needle that takes the time, right? But again, it's if you're just trying to get a sleeve or you're just trying to get it back so you can have it as quick as possible, Tebori's not for you. And I don't want to start work on people that are in a rush, right? Because you can't rush Tebori. As I send in my emails now, I send a little, I don't know, like a little blurb just about how you can rush with the machine. When I was working on my machine, if the clock was ticking and I had to finish a section before a session ended, you could rush it, move your hand faster, right? And you could get that part done and it would look good. With Tebori, you can't rush. There's only one speed. That's the speed of quality. If you try to rush Tebori, it looks patchy and it looks dirty. It looks like shit. And the Japanese call it dirty tattooing if you do Tebori incorrectly. So you just can't rush it. So with people that want to get Tebori, you have to resign yourself to this is how long it takes, and it takes as long as it takes, right? And that's not like some upsell. I'm not trying to slow down to fucking milk people out of money or anything like that. It's just, it's a different process, right? That's why most of my clients are 30 to 50 years old, right? People that aren't in a hurry. They don't want the quick Thailand sleeve or the quick Bali leg sleeve. You know, they just want something nice and classic and traditional. And that's what Tebori is, man. You're being part of a tradition that's hundreds of years old. I mean, I was taught in Japan Tebori. I use Japanese needles. I use Japanese ink. I make all my own picks. I try to stay as true to the Japanese tradition as I can, being a foreigner, right? Being white, not Japanese. So there's that. There's the time difference between machine and Tebori, right? And then there is the cost difference. Well, the cost is relative to the time. I charge the same hourly rate as I do for machine work as I do for Tebori. So there's no real difference on that. It's just that if a back piece, say neck to knee, by machine would take me 100 hours, a Tebori back piece might take me 130, right? So there's that, right? And I've already addressed, you know, it's a much more chill experience, right? You come out of these sessions, if you do a 3, 4, 6 hour session, you come out of that session relaxed. You're not stressed out, you're not tired, you're not fatigued, right? And this is a big difference. Like when I got a bunch of Tebori work done, it was a whole different experience afterwards, right? You can get on with your day. You're not going home and licking your wounds, right? And they tend to heal a lot differently as well. If it's done properly, Tebori, and you heal it well, I mean, it just flakes off. It doesn't even flake, just like, it just heals on its own. You don't get scabs. You don't have a painful healing. because the tattoo machine is going in to the skin, you know, like this at 110, 120 times a second, right? Whereas tattooing with Tebori is going in like that, you know, as fast as my hand can move, say, you know, five times a second, right? Give me one sec here, guys. I lost my monitor. And so there is a different amount of trauma to the skin. Machines, it depends. Again, if you go very shallow with a machine with very fine needles, you can get really good healing, very little trauma to the skin, but you don't get that richness of color and that vibrancy and that longevity. You can make nice tattoos, like all these color realism tattoos. It's very shallow tattooing and very fine needles. And the pigment they're using is, I don't want to say watered down, but it doesn't have a dense pigment load. So it's very easy to tattoo, very easy to blend colors. And you create these magical tattoos that look unreal. They look great for Instagram, but you look at them 6 months from now, and a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them, they wash out and they're not vibrant, right? The black's not vibrant, the colors aren't vibrant, and this is just the style, right? Whereas with Japanese tattooing, you know, any of you guys that follow me, you've seen my photos from Sanjo Matsuri. You know, I've seen some back pieces from 50 years ago done by hand that look as strong as they were done a year ago, right? So you're getting more ink deeper in the skin, under the skin, with a thicker needle, in a technique that pushes the ink under the skin. And you're getting a healing process that doesn't involve scarring. And I mean, this is just anecdotal, right? But I think that if you're getting a lot of skin trauma and a little bit of ink, you're going to get a little bit of opacity in the skin. So the colors aren't going to be as vibrant. Whereas with Tebori, you're getting much higher pigment load under the skin, and you're not getting any surface skin trauma at all because you're not chewing the skin up hundreds of times a second, right? So therefore, I mean, I have people that come in after I've tattooed them, and you know, people that work with me will vouch for this. It looks like the ink is painted on. Like you can't see the skin. It's incredible, right? And that's the look I go for. Obviously, it depends on the skin and stuff, but that's the look I go for. And that's what Tebori is all about. That's the perfection of having a tattoo that looks like it's painted on. There's no, like, you know, some of you have been tattooed. If you run your hands over your tattoo, you'll feel the lines where there's a little bit scarring, or you'll feel certain colors that are scarred, right? You don't get that with Tebori when it's done properly. You'll look at a tattoo and it'll just look like it's painted on and rich and deep and perfect. So that's what I try to do. Now, I understand in this day and age that not everyone has 150 hours to get a back piece, or 130 hours, or 50, 60 hours to get a sleeve. And there are, you know, constraints in the modern world. We're not living in 1800s Japan. So I was really strict when I started doing Tebori 5 years ago, right? I went from a chair and a table like a normal tattooer to the floor and the platform, and I only did everything by Tebori. Outlined by machine, everything by Tebori, and then I started freehanding everything on the skin. So after a couple of years of doing that, and sort of getting uncomfortable from sitting on the floor cross-legged, I decided to build a raised platform. So I now tattoo standing up, a little bit of compromise to suit me, and it's been very, very effective and beneficial for my health and my body, so I much enjoy that. So I'm going to compromise a little bit again, being how things are with COVID and time, and you know, like I said, most of my clients are 30 to 50, have kids, businesses, responsibilities. So I'm going to offer people now that they can get their outline by machine, and they can get their background by machine if they want, or by Tebori, right? So if you want to shave a little bit of time off, still have a Tebori colored tattoo, but a shaded by machine background tattoo, we can do that. That's something we can talk about during the consult, and we can discuss the options and all that kind of thing. I'm just trying to give back a little bit. I don't want people that are keen to get tattooed by me, but have a little bit of sticker shock by how long it takes. Right? So if you're interested and you want to talk about background by machine, we can totally do that. Now, if I start you by Tebori, you got to stick with Tebori because it's a whole different look. I can't do half and half. Right? So whatever you start with, we have to finish with. All right? And so that's something new that I'm going to be bringing in with my consults going forward. Otherwise, that's about all I have for Tebori answering questions at the moment. And if you have any questions about this, or about the video, or about Tebori, you can put them in the comments. You can send me a DM, or if you're an existing client or a future client, you can send me an email and we can talk about it like that. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and stay tuned. I'll be doing more content like this. I'll be talking about different woodblock artists, Japanese artists, and Tebori artists, and a little more stuff like that, different styles of Tebori and different styles of Japanese configurations and stuff, alright? Thanks for watching, and hit me up in the comments, alright? Thanks guys.